Hey gang, how's it going? Todd Nauck here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining me for this live stream. 2 days in a row now. If you joined me last night, where is it? I'm working on some pieces for the charity party for the Hero Initiative at San Diego Comic-Con. Gabe El-Taibs, he was the colorist I worked with on Robert Kirkman's Invincible Universe series a few years ago. So Gabe hosts these comic kickoff parties for preview night of San Diego Comic-Con, and he has comic artist guests, and I've been at every one. I've been a guest at every one, so this is a sixth one in a row here. And each artist draws usually about 4 pieces that are then either raffled or auctioned. I know yesterday I said raffled, but I think these pieces might be auctioned off. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but the people will be walking away with the art we create. And I drew Gambit yesterday. So hopefully you saw my Gambit live stream last night. If you didn't, it's still here on my YouTube channel. Go give it a watch here after this live stream. So I thought it'd be nice to do a companion piece, a Rogue. Though these will be either auctioned off or raffled off separately. Hopefully if you like Rogue and Gambit as a pair, hopefully you can win both, whether it be through raffle or auction. So I thought it'd be fun to do a Rogue piece here as well. Yeah, and all this info is on my social media, or at least I post the flyer. It's preview night of San Diego Comic-Con, and if you follow me or Gabe El-Taib or Jim Calafiore or Norm Ratmond or the couple other guests that will be there, we'll all be posting that info. So, and I'll probably get that info up on my website, toddnauck.com, here real soon. So let's flip the camera around and let's get to drawing. Gotta readjust the rig, pardon me. So we'll be taking this illustration from sketch, pencils, to inks, to full color, if all goes well. Got a piece of Bristol board here that they sent with the Comic Kickoff Party logo on it. Where do you get those blocks from? I'm not sure what blocks you're referring to. So let's see. I'll try to answer questions or respond to comments as I draw, but a lot of the focus will be on the art. And I do plan to do a Q&A at the end if there's time, if things allow, then yes, I hope to do a Q&A again at the end of this broadcast as well, because a lot of my focus is going to go into the art. And since I'm drawing Rogue, a lot of people ask, how do you draw female faces? How do you draw hair? I'm going to share that info as I draw here. So I might not be able to respond to as many questions or comments, but hopefully there is time to do that Q&A at the end. So using my unique Kuratoga 0.3 mechanical pencil with HB lead, I'm going to start roughing in the shapes. This is going to be a headshot because it's a kind of a small image area here, and I want to try to get as much detail on the face as possible. Just going to do a headshot. So start with that basic circle. Going to break down each bit here. So starting with that circle, come down here. So this is the top of the skull right here. And it's good to rough in the full head. This really will help in your drawing your hair if you know where the skull is, the entirety of the skull. And so we're going to come down here a little bit and create the jaw and chin. Essentially, it's kind of this trapezoidal almost. Kind of angling down, then angling a little further. So let's see. So we have the eye line. Eye line is halfway from the top of the head to the chin. Nose line, generally, is halfway from the eye line to the chin. And then the mouth line, which is generally halfway from the nose to the chin. These are the kind of the basic rules of thumb when drawing a person's head. Keep these things in mind. These are things you commit to memory. Now you can adjust depending on the person's face, the facial structure. Some people's faces might be wider, some people's faces might be more slender. But these are kind of the basic building blocks, the foundational stuff that we work from. Start to rough in the almond type shapes for the eyes. And let's see, consider the bridge of the nose. I like to do a little diamond right here to kind of get the tip of the nose going. I like to bring lines down from the center of the eye down. That kind of gives me an idea of how wide to make the mouth. And these lines kind of give me the kind of bit of the side of the face. The ears are between the eyebrow and the nose line, generally. So I'm going to kind of just rough in where the ears will be. I start very sketchy, very loose details starting off. Because if I need to make a change, it's easier to make corrections and change direction at this stage than doing full rendered like this area and then realize something doesn't line up and then I've wasted all this time. So I build slowly, bit by bit by bit. That's where the chin would be. That's where the nostrils will go. And just because I rough out every little shape here doesn't necessarily mean I'll utilize every shape in my inks. I will make choices as I go to how much detail I need to use for each part of the face. And with a female character, you don't necessarily want, you essentially want to use fewer lines than you would for like a male's face or an older person's face. The more lines you add to a woman's face, the more it will age her. Use more lines, you can, that's what you'd want to do for like an Aunt May. But for a character like Rogue, who is, I don't know, probably at this point, probably in her mid to late 20s, maybe, because she was a late teen. I think she was around 19 or 18 or 19 when she joined the X-Men back in the day. So she's probably in her mid to late 20s at this point in the Marvel comic universe. So I figure out where that shape is, that little trough between the bottom of our nose and our upper lip. And from there I can start to construct the mouth here. In fact, let's give her a little bit of a slight smile. Kind of that southern, hey there, sugar sort of smile. Maybe she's thinking about the wallop she's gonna the beat down, the slugfest she's gonna get into with some baddie like the Juggernaut or somebody like this. Now this is gonna be the 90s era Rogue here to kind of pair nicely with the Gambit. So just gonna continue to sketch these shapes in, considering how each part is lining up. And as I go here, you see more details starting to rough in. It's a slow process. It's bit by bit. That little tear duct right there. See, and she has, 90s Rogue has that headband, so I'm going to rough in that headband. Now with her hairline, just as I mentioned with Gambit last night, hairline generally, you want to consider putting your hairline, there's the eye line and the top of the skull. Rule of thumb is like halfway down. Now it could be further back or I guess even further forward if you wanted. It's rare that it goes further forward, but it's not unheard of. But depending on the person's hair style and hairline. An older person, maybe an older man, maybe the hairline's receding, so you can move it back as you feel necessary. But for Rogue, she's got a big full head of beautiful hair, so we're going to keep that hairline nice and full so it comes over and then down. I use that side guideline down and then over and then down to the ear. This kind of helps me start figuring out where the hairline will go, even though I will have the headband she wears covering part of it, and this will all be filled in black later on for the headband. So now she's got pretty long hair. Let's see, before I get to the hair, I want to finish out a little bit more of the face here. Just going to adjust the chin here. Didn't have a little too much chin. I don't want her to have too big of a chin. Start to bring in the neck here. See, make sure the ears are lining up a little more accurately. Let's darken in those eyebrows a little more. Start to really flesh in that detail there. That top of the eyelid, kind of arcing just right over that almond-shaped eye. Now I'm throwing a lot of lines down here, but when I go into the inks, when I go into the more finished line work, I am going to make different choices. I'm going to be able to choose which lines I want to use as the line work here for Rogue. So, and I'm not going to want to use too many because I don't want to clutter up her face too much. So let's see, she's got that collar. That 90s Rogue has the collar, a high collar, but has that little cutout in the center. It's a kind of a thick black stripe that goes around her neck and a little V shape right there. And let's see, she wears that leather jacket, that leather bomber jacket. So we're going to add that collar. See, the shoulders would kind of go out like that. So I draw all the way through. Even though the collar is going to cover over her shoulder, I still want to know where that is because I want things to line up as best as possible. So it's okay to draw things you're not going to use. These are guidelines to help the whole entirety of the illustration to fit together better. I wouldn't just draw this, then draw off to the side, ideally. Maybe sometimes I would, but I shouldn't. I should map out where I'm going to go. And it's going to help me fit things together a bit more accurately. And I'm going to be happier with my finished product if I take those necessary steps. Okay. So let's get her pupils and irises in here. So I'm going to rough in the iris. That's the color part of the eye. Just need to draw those bottom lid lashes. There we go. Let's see. Then there's the pupil that goes in the center. I'm going to draw in the little, I like to draw in a little white highlight there. That's just my personal preference. A little white highlight coming off there to the side. Just like the little bit of spark it gives to the eye. Little extra detail. Gonna darken up the top of that eye line just a little bit more. Okay, still think there's a little too much chin, so we're gonna just shave a little bit off there. Grab my kneaded eraser here. Just kind of adjust that line a little bit more. There we go. It is okay to erase, people. That's what erasers are for. We are constructing as we go here. So let's see. Now I've got to figure out her hair. Now, early 90s or 90s Rogue has big hair. So I'm starting from the center of my hairline here. I'm just going to start bringing some wild lines coming out. This will be starting with the kind of the white streak. Kind of get an idea of the volume of the hair. Just going to kind of rough in a big old chunk of hair. And then from these shapes I can then, just as I did with the face, refine those shapes as necessary. In fact, her hair is so big it'll be kind of, it's going up there towards the logo. We won't even see the top of it. And that's okay. So when I break down the big shapes, I break them down into the smaller shapes. some hairs that pull down, they kind of come up and then arc over. I don't like that one at all. It's not going with the flow that I'm trying to convey. So she's got this big chunk of hair that kind of like the bangs that are kind of initially flopping over, and then a few striations that kind of kick off in that direction. And then her hair kind of falls over that side of her headband. So then I just can fill in here with the with some of the graphite to make it, to signify where I'm going to have it darker. I can make adjustments as I go. Now, a lot of this comes with practice and just studying hairstyles. You can search hairstyles here on the interwebs and you can get a lot of great reference. You can search different eras of hairstyle, search 80s, 90s big hairstyles. And you're probably going to find some really cool shots, some cool real life reference you can utilize in how you draw your 90s era rogue. And knowing where the top of the skull is helps me maintain the right amount of volume for her hair and doesn't look like it's set too low and like the actual head would be cut off. So always figure out where the top of your skull is before you're drawing your hair. Make sure it's the right amount of head underneath. It will make your figures, your heads of your figures look a little more believable if you've taken the time to break down exactly where that top of your head is and the volume of hair under, going over it. Don't just draw a face, then start drawing hair on top of it. That could really lead to a misshapen head. And then your figure doesn't, or your character doesn't look as believable. Something might look off. It's because there's not enough head to support it, so it doesn't look quite like the correct shape. And these are really rough pencils, really rough pencils here. Let's see, and I'm going to bring the, this is the tail of her headband. I'm going to bring this down. Where she tied it in the back and it kind of flips forward here. Just to give us a little extra detail. I think it might look kind of cool. Okay, so just double check my headband here. Okay, so let's move to inks now, and we're just going to go with the Pigment Microns here to start off with. Going to go with the 08 first. And I'm going to start with the hair, because it overlaps the most things. So I want to work from the foreground back. So since the hair is probably the foremost of all the shapes on here, it's the easiest place for me to start. Because then I can ink stuff that falls underneath that hair. Pull a line across there. And I can just tuck the hair to that headband. And if you just tuned in, welcome. I'm drawing a piece here, this rogue piece for the comic kickoff party at San Diego Comic-Con on preview night, July 17th. That's a Wednesday. And all this info is on my social media, my Instagram, my Twitter, and I'll have it on my website here soon. So if you're coming to San Diego Comic-Con, come to the party, free admission. And you can, there'll be raffles and auctions. They'll be given away or auctioning off, well, art from all the artists. Not sure if it's an auction or a raffle, or a little bit of both. The show host, Gabe El Taib, will make those final calls, I'm sure, final decisions. And but there'll be prizes from Blizzard games and Funko. There'll be lots of pops available for raffle or auction. So it's a lot of cool stuff. And I think some comics from Dark Horse as well. So yeah, come by the party if you are at San Diego Comic-Con and there for preview night. So much like I did with Gambit, you know, I had these big chunks of hair, these big shapes, and then I add the wisps intertwined amongst them. Not necessarily having to draw every strand of hair. If you want to draw every strand of hair, go for it. You do you. Have fun with it. Make it your own. But I prefer to just draw certain striations, certain chunks, certain bits to convey that. And right now we're still mostly working on the white part of Rogue's hair, her white streak. Now we're going to start moving into the darker parts of her hair. Sorry about that, gang. Sorry about that. Phone call tried to come in. Probably should have set this to do not disturb. Have to remember that for future broadcasts. Actually, if you'll give me just a moment here, I'm going to open up the window. It's starting to get a little warm in here. Okay, we're back. Thank you so much. Could I show the first comics I drew when I was in school, when I was in high school? Maybe I'll do that someday. Maybe I will. Maybe for something special. See if I can make an event or something like that. Get the canals of the ear going there. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and start working that collar in. This is where it gets a little challenging, where you have to figure out what's overlapping what, and what's the best approach to get there. So we'll do the tail of her, or tails, I should say, of her headband, which will be mostly black. So I'm going to come in a little bit later with the black pen to really darken those up. Since we know this collar overlaps her hair, I want to make sure I get the collar going. Collar of her bomber jacket. Now, because she has this darker brown hair here on the sides and down the back, I like to layer in chunks of more concentrated lines for darker shadow, where the light's not hitting it as much. Curving the hair around. I'm drawing this hair completely from imagination, but I've drawn lots of hair in the past, so kind of utilizing the stored memory of what I've drawn in hair, what I've read in the comics and seen in the comics. It all kind of comes together, and as well as what have I studied in looking at real life hair, looking at fashion hair photos and stuff like that, 80s big hair and things like that. So, so it all kind of comes together like that. And just utilizing those skills that and the training I've developed over the years. This is why we say study and practice, study and practice, study and practice. Because essentially, when we're drawing, whether we're drawing fully from memory or from imagination, part of that is just things we've cataloged in our head from things we've seen, and then just repurposing it in different ways. So it's all study, it's all study to one degree or another. And then we're just creating based on our perception, and then what you might perceive by our communication of these lines and shapes. So it's not like you study, then you know, and then you never study again. You're always studying. You're always taking into account what you're seeing and either storing it away for future use, or remembering it, or seeking it out. Got the ridges on the inside of her collar, the collar of her jacket. Still using the 0.8 micron here. Okay, so let's see. Let's do the bottom part of her headband as we start to work to the other side. We'll fill in the details of the face here pretty soon. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and fill them in now. Let's see, I have a few little hairs that come down to the side of her ear there. I'm gonna go ahead and start inking this side of her face and just keep working my way to the right. That's her eyebrow there. Let's get the eye itself going. I'm going to switch this down to the 0.1. A little finer tip for a little more control of these finer details. So I haven't been able to respond to any comments or questions. So much focus is going into describing how I'm doing what I'm doing here. So, but hopefully we'll have time to do that Q&A, and I can address some more questions and comments here towards the end of the broadcast, or at the end of the broadcast. So where the little highlight is, and then the outer part of the iris, then that pupil. Right there in the center. Just arc the eyelid down there a little bit more. Let's see. Let's tackle this other eyebrow now. See the, gonna start going in this direction here. Arc it up and arc it over. Study eyebrows. Look at photos of eyebrows. Look at the shapes that they make, the emotions that are conveyed. I actually really enjoy drawing eyebrows. I really enjoy how expressive they can be, how they can communicate so much. Get this other eye inked in. Still using the 0.1 micron. Definitely a finer point than the 0.8, so I can get tighter, more crisp details. Okay, that takes care of her eyes. Let's go ahead and add some inks to the nose here. So a little bit there on the tip of the nose, maybe a little bit on this side. I'm not even going to draw in the full bridge of the nose because I want her face to be a little more, I don't want that many lines on the face, I guess I should say. I don't want that strong of a line running down the center of her face. So I'm going to allow color to come in and shape that out for a nicer, I should say, nicer, more subtle sort of shape to her nose. So just mostly the tip of the nose and the nostrils there. And that's all I need. That's all I need. But I want to know where that bridge is so that when I'm constructing her nose, I'm getting it in the shape that I want it to be. What I feel is the best shape for what I want to convey. So I need to structure that out so I can make the right choices. Let's draw on the lips here. Got that little teardrop center to the outer parts there. And the top of the lip. I appreciate, or say thanks to everyone. I appreciate you tuning in and joining me for today's broadcast. And hopefully I can do a Q&A here at the end of the show so that I can address some of the comments and questions. A little heavier shadow on the bottom of the lip, just to create that sense of mass and volume and weight. A little bit of a top to the chin there, just a little bit. Just a teeny bit. So now I'm going to switch back to my 0.8 micron, that thicker nibbed pen, and I'm going to continue on across the face here. Let's see. There we go. Got that jawline finished. Let's get the ear going here. There we go. And let's start, let's see. We'll handle the neck now. And then the bomber jacket collar. There we go. Now the collar overlaps the costume, so I want to define those little ridges there a little bit. Got her clavicle right there. Just a few lines to convey that. And then the top of the collar of her bodysuit. Making a little edit here and moving the collar just a little higher. I realized that my pencils had it a little lower than what I wanted. So just with the inks, I'm just making that decision just to move it up. Why Rogue can't fly in the movies? She can't fly in the movies because that's not her power. Her original power is just to steal people's psyche, personality, and powers via skin-to-skin contact, touch. And she only got her flight and super strength and invulnerability powers when she absorbed Carol Danvers' Miss Marvel powers back in the 1980s. And Carol Danvers got stuck inside Rogue and her powers got stuck. So Rogue now had a power upgrade, but only by sheer accident. And then later on in the comics, they wrote that out. So in the movies, she hadn't met or encountered Carol Danvers yet. So she hadn't, had the fight where she accidentally got stuck with Carol's personality and psyche and powers inside of her. So that's why she can't fly in the movies. It's because those are not her original powers. They are powers she absorbed and got stuck inside of her. Because usually her power is they wear off. The powers, the psyche, the personality wears off after a time, usually a fairly short time. I think sometimes it depends on how long she is able to touch a person is congruent to how long she maintains that power set and personality and psyche. So it's all just stolen Carol Danvers powers when Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. But then Carol got her powers back. She got everything back. Of course, Rogue had to lose all those powers. But then Carol Danvers was back to being Miss Marvel. Then she became Warbird. And now she is Captain Marvel. That's a really brief, truncated history of Rogue's powers and Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers story. Just some of the key points in relation to these two characters. Okay, so now we're doing the other side of the hair here. I'm doing the brown part of the hair, so that's why I'm using some darker details here, and it'll really come together when we start dropping in the Copic marker color. I want to draw in the epaulets here on her bomber jacket. Just pulling those lines around and through. For the curve of the hair. Okay, I think we've just about got the line art done here for Rogue. Got some nice volume to the hair. We're going to come in with some color here real soon. Real soon. But first I need to erase. So I'm not going to finish putting the blacks in just yet because I want to erase first. So I know this side is pretty much dry. So I know it's safe to take my kneaded art gum eraser here. Start taking out all these pencil structure lines. They are no longer necessary. Look at that, look at the face, how it comes together there. We had all those sketch lines, just like with Gambit yesterday. Come in with the erase and the nose there. We lost that bridge line I'd used to structure it out, but it gives it a nice, clean, feminine face. Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Okay. So, oops, I see a little more pencil. Sometimes I'll erase the pencils, then realize, oh, there's a whole chunk of pencils I didn't even see there for a second. Let's get those erased out. All right, so there's Rogue. Let me grab my wallets of Copic markers. Got my grayscale markers. And my big 72 count wallet of colors. This isn't my entire Copic collection, but it's the ones I use the most. I definitely use at conventions. So, oops, it's not another chunk of pencil line I need to erase. All right, so we're gonna start with the hair. And we're gonna go with, kind of similar with Gambit, we're gonna start with the E89 for the initial darker black, or darker brown chunks of hair. Gonna start dark and then work our way lighter. So the places where light isn't going to hit as much because it's layered behind other chunks of hair, that's where I want to put this darker brown. The further we move out towards the outer part of the hair, that's where the light's hitting, so it's going to be lighter brown. So I keep in mind what's overlapping what, and whatever is furthest away from the light, that's where shadow will be, or where darker colors will be. Especially with the hair. And the light's pretty much coming from above. This is just kind of just a standard lighted scene. Standard lighted, standard lit. Is lit maybe the more appropriate past tense that I should be using? Okay, so that was the E89. Now I'm going to come over here to the, let's try the E25. E25 for a bit of a different shade of brown of hair than what we used on Gambit. So leaving a chunk of white here, a white ring, or that would be the highlight of the hair. Where the light is hitting that healthy Pantene Pro V hair. I should get a sponsorship from CoverGirl and Pantene Pro V shampoos. I'm not being paid by them at all to say these things. But it's the way I'm thinking. But thinking about hair, thinking about the face, the coloring of the face. It does kind of come into play a little bit. If you just tuned in, welcome. So glad you're here. Drawing Rogue from the X-Men right now. This piece will be up for either raffle or auction. at the comic kickoff party on preview night of San Diego Comic-Con next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Free admission to the party, and all this info will be on my social media, on my Instagram, my Twitter, and later on it'll be on my website as well. Okay, so that was some E25. Now let's come in with a little E13, I think is what I want to use. Yes, some E13 to just kind of blend this out just a little bit more. I let the lighter shade of ink go over that darker shade of ink so the 2, 3 inks can all kind of blend together and merge together. All right, now let's deal with this white streak in her hair. So what I'm going to do is utilize some shades of blue and shades of cool gray. So I'm going to start with some B000 here to create kind of this bluish, grayish sculpting to the white. So again, keeping in mind that white ring of highlight. So I'm just kind of doing the inner and outer edges of her hair. For nice subtlety. Definitely darker underneath where the hair flips out, because that's where less light is hitting. Or where it really curves down and around. Now we're going to come in with some light gray. We're going to come in with the cool gray 1. And go over all that light blue, just to kind of mute it out real nice. And it gives us this nice light bluish gray shade to signify the shadow on the white of her hair. Okay, there we go. That takes care of the white streak for now. So let's move to her skin tone. I'm going to start with the E00. So let me cap that multi-liner back. All right, so I'm going to lay in the first layer of color here. Very lightly. Keeping in mind each shape of each section of her face. The cheeks, the nose, the upper part of the lip, down the jawline there. Just going to sculpt out each section. Under the eye, under the eyebrow, under the eyelid. Down the bridge of the nose, around the cheek, leaving a little bit of the white of the board available for some other lighter colors to come in to blend into. Down along the neck here. Okay, that's just round 1. I'm going to come in with some E01 now. And I've chosen to really highlight, accentuate this side of her nose for the bridge of the nose. Not both sides, just this side. Because I have the highlight in the eye here, so the light is coming just a little bit from this direction. I'm going to continue to sculpt in the cheeks, a little darker underneath the nose there. Underneath the eyebrow. This is where studying the facial features can really come in play as we do our colors. Because there's a lot of subtleties in the face, the way the muscles pull, the shape of the bones underneath, the skull underneath. Things we want to keep in mind as we're coloring the eyelid. How are we going to translate that? So looking at real-life photo reference can really help in determining how to translate those shapes. And I've practiced it a lot, so I'm going off of, again, I'm working off of my cataloged memory of what I've done again and again and again and again and again. Okay, so now I want to come in with some pinks for her face. So I'm going to start with the R20, my go-to for giving that rosy nose I enjoy so much. A little bit here at the corners of the mouth, a little bit up here by the eyes. R20 is a pretty vibrant shade of light pink, so I'm not going to use too much. Definitely going to use some, but not too terribly much. I'm going to come in with some lighter shades like the R11. I'm going to blend more that R20 in with these E's that I've been using. I'm going to come in with some R20, my preferred lightest shade of pink. Really going to round out these cheeks. Full rosy cheeks. Eat up more of that white of the board that I've left in there. So you can really start to see her face take shape now. Down here on the chin, round out that chin. Use some of this up in the forehead here. Right there at the top of the bridge of the nose. So it's really starting to sculpt out here. And now just as a little finishing touch, some E000, just to blend everything together now. Just kind of smooths everything out. Okay. Now let's do the, actually, now that I see here, we have some extra brown hairs I want to address, and I want to put some of this E89 shade of brown in her eyebrows. There we go. Hopefully that was on screen. All right, so now for her jacket. Let's try some E84 as my initial dark shade. So considering that her neck is covering things up here, you know, what pieces are further away from the light, that's where I'm going to want to use some of the darker color. We'll come in with the grays for some shadows in a moment. Some more realistic shadows. Okay, now let's come in with some E34. Just letting the colors blend together here. And we're going to finish off with some E31. Then we'll tackle the yellow part of her bodysuit here on her neck. So this is the E31 right now. Okay. So for the yellow here, I'm going to start with some Y21. Keeping in mind the shape of the neck, clavicle there. Now because I've done this a bajillion times, got a good idea of how I want those neck striations to pull down, those muscle striations. Now I'm going to power over to the Y13. If you watch my X-Men group shot video, you know I use this Y13 a lot. It's my go-to yellow for most all superhero costumes, especially X-Men related. I just really enjoy this shade of yellow. I'd probably use this on Iron Man and most Superman. Definitely use it on my Superman illustrations. Let's see some Y00 here, just to finish off. Oh, and one thing I forgot in her costume is she has these little black stripes that cut in right there. So we're going to make sure we add those too. In fact, we'll go ahead and ink those in now as well. We'll fill those in black here in just a moment. First, we want to color her eyes. So I'm going to use a little bit of the B000. I want to sculpt out the white part of her eye, the eyeball, just right up there underneath the eyelid. Now with some YG45, going to start putting in the color in her eyes. In fact, we can push in here a little bit so you can see that. So I'm mostly just focusing right underneath the eyelid on this opposite side of the little white highlight. Do the same on this side. So I'm almost leaving this third of the iris open because I'm going to come in with an even lighter shade of green. This is the YG03. I'm going to fill in the other side, let it bleed into that YG45, and let the colors blend together there for some real nice, pretty green eyes. Now I want to add a little bit of light brown here, the E13 to the upper eyelid here. Kind of give it a little bit of a look of makeup. Now, in the 80s, they established Rogue wears like this really heavy makeup, so that because her face was the only exposed skin part, so she didn't accidentally touch people. You know, that's why she keeps the rest of her body, you know, clothed, gloves, things like that. But for her face, she wore real thick pancake makeup so that there'd be a bit of a layer between her skin and the rest of the world, so that if anyone brushed against her face, she wouldn't quickly absorb their powers or psyche. So just adding a little bit of brown there for a bit of an eyeshadow sort of look. All right, so, we need to do the lips. We'll do the lips next, and I'm going to try a trick here with the black parts, which I want to be black and green, and we're going to do something a little different than what I've done in previous videos, so stick around for that. But first, let's take care of the lips. RV95, going to start with a darker shade, and we're going to hit the areas that are furthest away from the light source. And we kind of established it's from above and maybe a little bit to the right here. So these opposite sides, the underneath and if the light's from what would be my left, then her right would have a little bit more of the darker there. Now let's come in with some RV32. Going to fill in more of that. I like to leave a little bit of that center of the lip open with white as a highlight. Usually I fill in the full top lip. You know what, let's see, I'm going to bring in a little R85 here, just to kind of, I don't want to make it like a full-on red lips. Just my personal preference. I think a pinker lip here is a little more natural looking. I wouldn't see Rogue using a big bright red lipstick in this costume, so shades of pink are, I think, preferred on my end here. So I used a little R85 there just to punch that up. I'm going to come back here with some more RV32 that I had been using earlier as a second layer, just to make that a little darker. So let's see. So now let's come in and we're going to put in the kind of the natural shadows. Again, we're going to tackle all the black stripe and headband parts here in just a moment. Right now we're going to do some natural shading. So I'm coming in with some Cool Gray 1. Hopefully that wasn't too off screen here. Just going underneath the eye and under this side of the head. This ear is furthest from the light, so there's going to be a lot of gray on top of that. This cheek here, opposite from the light, so I'm going to really put a lot of gray there. Cool Gray 1, down the bridge of the nose, a little bit under the eye. Completely underneath the nose here. A little bit here in that philtrum there. Philtrum is the term for that trough between the bottom of our nose and our top lip. A little bit there at the corners of the mouth. A little bit there underneath the bottom lip. The chin. That whole side of the face where it's, because remember, light's coming from this direction, roughly. A little bit from above, a little bit from our left. A little bit underneath that cheek, but not a lot, not as much as this side, just a little bit. That ear is really under the hair, so it's not getting much light at all. And then under this eye, under that eyelid right there, just a little bit, just there in the corner. Not too much, don't want to over render it. See, then this wisp of hair is going over her face, so determining how far it is. Put a shadow like that, gives a real fun 3D effect. Maybe pull like this, and so this hair is casting a shadow over that way. Just a teeny tiny at the corners of her nose, where the cheek muscles pull. And just a little bit there on that side of the lip, upper lip. And then underneath the chin. So now I'm going to switch over to the Cool Gray 2, a little bit darker. I'm going to use this for the yellow parts of her costume. I'm going to put shadows here on the yellow part, keeping in mind what's overlapping, like the jacket, the tails of the headband there, the clavicle, shoulder muscle, shoulder bones I should say, not a muscle, but a bone. I'm going to use some of this Cool Gray 2 underneath this chin here for a little bit darker shadow. Maybe a little bit on this cheek here. Definitely a little bit more under the nose here. I like to start light with my shadows and then go darker where I feel I need to. You can always make it go darker. Can't really make it go lighter. So I like to start light and then see, do I need it to be a little bit darker? I think I do. Or if I don't, then I don't. I can just leave it as is. A little darker there under the eyes. A little darker in the deeper recesses of her ears. Maybe on that side of the neck. A little more underneath the lip, a little bit in the lips too. So these cool grays are now mingling with the colors I put down. The inks are mingling and making a new color. A little bit of cool gray in that blue I put in her eyeball. A little bit in the green there, just underneath where the eyelid is. Just kind of creates some fun depth. Maybe some of this cool gray too in the deeper recesses of her bangs. Okay, now I'm going to switch it to the cool gray 3, and this is going to be used for the collar of her jacket. A little darker for the jacket. So it's going to be hidden behind that neck. So dropping that in there and gives the neck pop, and we're creating more depth, creating that illusion of depth. Put that cool gray underneath that collar there. There we go. Now we're going to bring in some cool gray 5, an even darker shade of gray. I'm going to just drop some of this in here amidst her hair, just to give some shadow to the hair. Don't need a lot, but just want a little, just like with Gambit last night, just dropping that gray in so it the hair has that same sort of vibe as the rest of her does. Put a little bit of this cool gray there in the nostrils. Maybe a little bit here in the ears, the deeper parts, further away from the light. Okay, so now for the headband and the collar and these things here. Filling in black last. Filling in black last because if I put black in first, all these other colors I used would want to try to, any of the skin tone or the brown, if that touched the black, it would want to try to pull that black ink into it. I didn't want that. So if I ever want to use the black Copic markers here, the black 100, then I'm going to use it last. So I'm going to pull from the sides towards the center. I'm going to do a gradation from black to gray to green. And hopefully this will work out in a cool way. Because these inks, Copic inks, are made to blend with each other. And you're going to see how they start to blend as we go there. So leaving a big chunk of white there. We're going to come in with some gray, and then we're going to come in with some green. But before that, I just want to use the black in all the spots I want to. So in the tail of her headband. And I'm putting it on the right side of the headband because the light's coming from this way, remember, and from above. So there's going to be heavier black, dark areas on the opposite side of the direction of the light. And these little stripes here by the clavicle, they are just going to be full on black because they're so small. Now for the collar of her collar, the stripe of her collar, gonna put in some black. Again, more on this side, more black on this side than on this side. So that's step 1. Step 2, let's bring in some gray. Going to start with some neutral grays. So I'm going to come with some neutral gray. I said 5, or I was going to say 5, but I'm going to go with 6. Use the same shade on Gambit last night. So I'm going to pull from that black, going over that black and pulling into the white. We're creating a gradation here. And we're letting these inks blend with each other. So we're going to get a little bit of a watercolor effect, as much of the watercolor effect as you can achieve with marker ink. But with the blending, it's going to give that a little bit of that vibe. So that was the neutral gray 6 right there. Now we're going to come in with some neutral gray 4. Continue this process, just heading to the center of the forehead here. See how it's blending? It's creating this kind of real smooth, subtle blending, gradation. That's what we're shooting for. So this is like essentially what I'm trying to make happen here is give a sense of black. It's a black headband that reflects a little bit of green. There's a little bit of green in it. Haven't got to the green stage yet though. We're still prepping for that with the blacks and these neutral grays. But it is now time for the greens. So the same greens I used for her eyes, I'm going to use these for her headband as well, at least for now. If I don't like it, I can always come in with a different shade of green over it. So I'm coming with the YG45 all the way from the black, pulling across. Entirely from the black over towards that white area. So over all those grays. Now you're starting to see the green come to life there. How it goes from black to green. This is the gradation I was hoping to achieve. Now go over these parts. So it's mostly black, but you get that hint of green. I could have gone all black if I wanted, and that'd been totally cool. But I wanted to get that sense of green in Rogue's costume, since her character is so synonymous. Most all of her designs have had, a vast majority of her designs have had incorporated black and green. In fact, this costume was the first time they brought yellow into her costume that I can remember. She used to have a green and orange costume in the mid-'80s, but she didn't wear it for very long. Now some of that YG03, the same that I used for her eyes, just bringing that right through the center there. So it kind of ties in the green of her headband into the green that's in her eyes. Just like that. Now I did it with Gambit. I want to do it with this illustration just to maintain a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Continuity. I'm going to do an outline around her, and I'm going to take this YG45 again, and I'm just going to do a little outline around her just to give her a little anchor on the page, just to break her apart from the white of the board. It's just going right around the outer perimeter of the line art. So we're on the tail end of this illustration, so the Q&A is coming up next. So appreciate everyone hanging out. Thank you for your patience. So sorry I couldn't really address many of the questions or comments, but I really wanted to focus on giving y'all the straight scoop and tips on how I draw women and hair, because I know a lot of people have asked about that. I get that question quite a bit. So I wanted to address that here in this video, and I thought Rogue would be a great character to do that with, because there's a lot of hair. A lot of hair in this design. In fact, I could have drawn probably even bigger hair if the space had allowed for it. There we go. Little outline around her hair there. Let's take my micron and put my autograph on here. So erase those lines there. And let's see, today is July 9th, 2019. And there is Rogue. Let me adjust the camera here so you can see. As a finished Rogue piece, and I will be sharing her on my social media. So now I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll tackle a couple of questions for Q&A. All right, let me readjust the rig, and we can chat here just a little bit. Is that good there? Let me, sorry gang. There we go. All right, so thank you so much, gang. Let me pull up Rogue there, finished Rogue illustration to pair with Gambit. Rogue and Gambit, and both of these will be available at the comic kickoff party in San Diego Comic-Con Wednesday night, July 17th. Gabe was so kind to put the date on the board. So July 17th is when these will be either auctioned off or raffled off. We'll find out the night of the party. Not sure which direction Gabe is going to go with that, but some lucky party goers will end up walking away with these. And all the money raised, whether it be for the auctions or through raffle ticket sales, all that money goes to benefit the Hero Initiative. It's a charity that that provides help, financial assistance to comic creators in their old age, when they're not able to work as much because of, health reasons or whatever, and need help with, rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, things like that. So they really take care of the comic creators that really were the forerunners, is the best word I can think of. The front runners, the ones that really established a lot of the characters that we know, enjoy, that we all grew up on, and now get to either read or, like myself, tell the continuing stories of. So let's see if there were some questions that came in, and I'll try to tackle a couple of these. Sorry I can't answer everyone's question yet, or at this time. All right, let's see. I'm seeing a lot of great comments. Thanks for the comments, everyone. Really appreciate all the support. Speak French, please. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas, mon ami. Je ne sais pas. Why not the Sharpie like last night? I didn't use a Sharpie last night. I used, I think, a Pentel Pocket brush pen. I didn't want to use that for this because I wanted to try to do this black to green gradation. So that's why I didn't use the Pentel Pocket brush pen or the zebra brush pen, which I believe is what you're referring to. How often do I have to replace the markers that I use? Nice thing about the Copic Sketch markers is that you don't have to replace them. You buy, let's see, do I have them handy? Yeah, let's see, I have some right down here. You just go and get replacement bottles of ink. Now this is for the black. You have to buy the color refill ink for the marker that you're refilling. So I'd have to get the E84 bottle, which I have somewhere down here, to replace, to refill this. And you can get, from this bottle, I get about 10 to 12 refills, marker refills. So it really makes these markers cost efficient in the long run. Yeah, it's maybe $6 to $8, it's usually $5 to $7 for a marker, $6 to $8 for a refill bottle, but if you get 10 refills out of it, that's 60 to 80 cents per marker refill. So that means you only spent 60 to 80 cents to replace that one marker. And 60 cents, 80 cents, not bad. Not bad return on your marker investment, but it is kind of pricey up front. But once you get it rolling, your collection rolling, it's a little easier to maintain financially. You'd love to see me draw Megatron someday. That would be fun. I do enjoy the Transformers, if you couldn't tell. Optimus Prime right there. Who's my favorite Transformer? Generation 1. Love Generation 1. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave. Anyone with the word wave in their name, they're going to rank high for me. Ironhide, Ratchet, Wheeljack, Mirage, Cliffjumper. They're all awesome. Did you miss the drawing? Oops. Yeah, we finished the drawing. Here it is right here. But you can always come back and rewatch. Once we're done with the broadcast, it'll process and upload to my channel, and you can come back and watch anytime and every time you want to. Let's see, were there any other questions? Okay. Let's see. Do you stack your Copic marker vertical or sideways? You heard it's bad to have them vertically, but if you only use one side, does that matter? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, mostly they kind of stand at an angle here, but I haven't had any problems with marker or ink or the way I've stored them, whether it be horizontally or vertically. But yeah, it seems like when I go to the art supply store, they are displayed horizontally. So maybe that is the best way for them to be, but I haven't heard one way or the other. Let's see. Have I ever been dissatisfied with a finished piece, or is it never finished before you are satisfied? Interesting question. That's an interesting way to frame it. It all depends. There's all sorts of illustrations I've done or not completed to varying degrees. But yeah, I've been dissatisfied with an illustration I've done. That's just being human. Maybe it didn't turn out the way I expected. Sometimes I was dissatisfied that day when I finished the illustration. I set it to the side. I come back a couple of days later and see it in a completely different light because I got a fresh eye, seeing things that, oh, wow, I do like that. Actually, this is better than what I thought it was when I was exhausted when I was finishing it a few days before. So it all just kind of depends. There have been pieces that I've worked on, not liking the way it's going, so I just ditch it. I just bail on it and start over or start something new because, I didn't want to waste time working on something that I really couldn't course correct. And sometimes that happens, and that's okay. That's okay. Maybe I spent 2 hours working on a piece that's going nowhere. That's all right. It's just a time to learn, just a lesson, and keep moving forward. So not every piece is going to be 100% satisfied. It's a varying degree depending on so many different factors. Did I see Toy Story 4 yet? Yes, I did. Loved it. Let's see. How do you decide what tone of gray to use? Warm, cool, neutral? Just depends on what effect you're going for, what it is you're illustrating. I like to use cool grays for my shadows on figures for the most part because I think it gives a more natural look. Sometimes when I'm using photo reference for something I'm coloring, I can see, oh, there's a bit of a warmth to that gray. I should tap into my warm grays, or maybe a neutral gray fits the bill. So it really depends on what it is I'm illustrating. Like this here, like this TV screen, I'd probably use a lot of cool grays, but maybe some neutral grays through here. But in the background, maybe some of the warm grays, like through here, cool gray mixed with warm gray. So it all just depends on what are you seeing, how do you want to translate that to your viewer, what choices do you make with the color. And sometimes it's just looking and picking out, what do I see? Do I see warm or cool? Do I see yellow, light brown? Do I see blue? Things like that. These are things that I think about and keep in mind. Just tackle a couple more questions, then we'll wrap it up. Let's see, what X-Men comic do I recommend to read to get into them? Or what's my favorite X-Men comic? You've never really been into the X-Men and you would like to give them a try. When I started reading the X-Men as a kid in the 1980s, I didn't have a comic shop. I didn't have easy access to the full run of X-Men comics. So I bought whatever X-Men comic was available that month. And I ended up subscribing to X-Men. So I kind of just came in on the middle of the story. So I can't say what is the best comic to start with. I would say it's any comic because most comics are like a soap opera. And, it's a continuing story, so much history. And if you were to watch a soap opera on TV, you can't, well, nowadays with streaming, maybe you do have the luxury of going back and finding the earliest episodes, like on YouTube or something like that. But if you're just going to tune in on TV, you just pick up where it's at and you just kind of fill in the gaps as you go. The writers often try to, whether it be for those shows or for comic books, they're going to fill in the gaps to remind you or let you new readers know this is what happened before and what's affecting the story now. So I would say, we have the whole new House of X and Powers of X of X-Men starting up real soon here. So maybe that's your jumping on spot. Maybe you need to go to a comic shop and start flipping through some trade paperbacks and see what kind of grabs you. There are tons and tons of X-Men stories. Same with Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Teen Titans, Justice League, Fantastic Four. There are tons of material on all these characters. And from my experience as a kid, you just read whatever you can get a hold of and then just build from there. Because there's so much history. And when I started reading comics, the Marvel Universe was only 24, 25 years old. So now it's 50 plus, almost 60 years old. Technically 80 years old if you include the Golden Age, which I think they do now. So, so there's a lot of history to go there. So go to the comic shop, look around, just flip through things, see what grabs you. Pick up an X-Men trade paperback, look at an X-Men comic and just see what sparks your interest and then run with it and have fun. Have fun discovering the world. That's the thing I like about comics, is it's the joy of discovery. You're going to discover these characters' worlds in whichever one you pick up, whether it's a single issue comic or a trade paperback, the middle of a story, the end of one story that's about to launch a new story, whatever it is. It's kind of like meeting people. When you meet someone at school or at work, you don't know their whole life. You know, you don't know what the past 10, 15, 20 years of their life were. You just know them now. And then as you get to know them now, moving forward, they tell you stories of their past as you tell them stories of your past. And the person starts to round out. It's kind of the same with comics. So keep that in mind and give whatever characters you're interested in a try. Tackle one or two more questions and I got to sign off. Have I seen Far From Home yet? No, not yet, but I want to see it soon. Let's see, you like my art style, has a slight Disney feel to it. Was Disney a major influence on my style? Not really. I do enjoy the Disney movies. I mean, especially the ones nowadays, but back in the 80s, they weren't really putting out a lot of movies when I was a kid. In the late 80s, early 90s, they did with Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and on. And so I did enjoy those, and I'm sure they influenced me to a degree, but they were not a strong or heavy influence that really was something I really deconstructed to try to fit into my style. Not quite like that, but I definitely do appreciate the Disney style, absolutely. Where is the event this is going to take place? I believe you're referring to the comic kickoff party. It's at Bar Basic, or Basic Bar and Pizza. That's in downtown San Diego, just maybe a 5-minute walk from the San Diego Convention Center. So that info will be on my Twitter and Instagram account. I'll have the flyer posted there, and any more information I get, and I'll also try to post this on my website. So it's at Bar Basic, and this illustration will be posted here on my social media here just in the next maybe half hour or less. So you can see a photo of this here real soon, along with the flyer for the event. So you can hopefully get that information. So let's see, I saw someone post here something we were talking about last night when we were doing the Gambit piece. Someone asked for a character and object to draw as a challenge for them. And so I suggested Spider-Man and pizza. And so Tari is asking, when are you going to get that drawing? When are you going to get to see that drawing of Spider-Man eating pizza? That's for you guys. That's my challenge to you. Not for me. Not for me. That's for you. I have no plans on drawing Spider-Man eating pizza at this time right now. That's the challenge that was asked from me to be given to you young artists. So draw Spider-Man eating pizza, or Spider-Man and whatever with pizza. He doesn't necessarily have to be eating it. He could be carrying it, delivering it, whatever. Be creative. And just tag Todd Nauck Art Challenge. And hopefully I can get a chance to see what y'all might be doing. And maybe if I'm able to, I can leave a comment. Maybe. Can't make any promises, but maybe I will. So so that's my challenge to you young artists. The Todd Nauck, # Todd Nauck Art Challenge. Spider-Man and a slice of pizza. Or a full pizza. Whatever. You decide. You decide. You get to make those creative choices. Tell your story in that one image there. Much like I did when I do Mystery Art Challenge, or which is now called Mysterious Art Combo, with my friend Tony G-Man Guerrero. That's it, gang. Gotta sign off. Got a lot to do, but I'm so glad I was able to get another illustration, number 2 of 4, for the comic kickoff party preview night of San Diego Comic-Con. Gang, thanks so much, and I'll see you again real soon. Take care, keep on drawing, keep having fun.